Here we are in session 6 of the book club for deployment. And today is all about deployment goals. Welcome. So excited to be here with you today. I'm Lizanne Lightfoot, also known as the Seasoned Spouse, and I am the author of the Ultimate Deployment Guide, which we will be studying in our course today. I'm so excited to be here with you to walk you through the deployment journey. So far this month, we've already talked about some of the more challenging and difficult topics of deployment paperwork and things to do. And this week was all about the positive aspects of deployment. We've talked about making friends and building up a supportive network. We talked about planning out fun care package ideas to support and encourage your service member. And today, we are going to talk about setting goals and making a bucket list that will help motivate you and encourage you through deployment. So for those who are joining in live, thanks so much. It's great to see you here. If you're watching this on the replay, remember that you can always leave your comments you can leave questions in the comments section, and I will go back and read them afterwards. So I'm happy to have you joining us, and I want to focus on this important topic today that you can find on pages 10, the bucket list, and 11, the SMART goals, as we talk about why it's important to set goals for yourself during deployment and healthy ways to fill out those sheets. So first, let's talk about this idea of bucket lists. Now, a lot of people use deployment as an opportunity to do something new, do something different, maybe something that they wouldn't usually do with their service member. And making a bucket list is a way to take advantage of the time that deployment gives you. Sometimes it is an incredibly long time to have to yourself. And I know how hard it is to wait for your service member and to feel like your life is on hold. But I also know that those months of deployment are time that you will never get back. And so instead of spending them, kind of sitting at home, holding your breath, counting down the days, and just waiting for the end of deployment, the best thing that you can do is to use that time to invest in yourself, make choices that are going to benefit you and keep you moving and keep you motivated, so that not only does the time go faster during deployment, but you can also feel satisfied and fulfilled while you are in that waiting stage. I want to tell you a couple of stories very quickly about how I came to the conclusion that bucket list and goals were important, and some of the caution that you need to make when you are approaching them. So the first example is an example of what not to do. From my very first deployment, I was dating my service member at the time, and I was in college. We had been dating only for a year or so. We were serious, but we weren't engaged, we weren't married, and I didn't quite know what the future held for us. So when he deployed and we had months and months that we were not going to be able to talk to each other, we had a little bit of opportunity to write letters, but that was it. That was our only communication. And in some ways, I felt like my life was just on hold, that I wasn't allowed to do anything different. I didn't want to explore. I didn't want to make any new friends. I didn't want to learn any new hobbies because I was afraid, what if I changed? And what if when he came home, I had developed into a different person, that he didn't want to date anymore, that he wouldn't like me anymore? And now I know, obviously, that is a very insecure and kind of immature way to look at a relationship. So I sincerely hope that you are not in that place. But I want you to know that I can relate to that feeling where you look at the months ahead of you during a deployment, and all you can see is the time that you just want to pass as quickly as possible so that you can reach that milestone at the end. And I can tell you from experience that in later deployments, as I matured and grew up a little bit and became more comfortable in our relationship, that I learned that deployment was a great opportunity for me to grow, to develop, to make new friendships, to explore new hobbies, to try out things that I would never do with my boyfriend or with my husband because it would bore him or it wasn't interesting to him. But if they're things that are interesting to me, then deployment is a perfect opportunity to try them out. So that's why we have a bucket list as part of your deployment guide. This is in here not just for fun, not just to be a cute little page, but to really get you thinking about what are some things that you want to do during this deployment. And I gave you some different categories to think about. There's places to go. This could be local, maybe just exploring your local town, visiting a new park, checking out a hiking trail, going to a local attraction. Or it could be somewhere, anywhere in the country. Maybe you've always wanted to take a big trip to visit a friend or visit a family member, fly to another state. Sometimes deployment is a really good time to travel. Now, I know not quite exactly right now with coronavirus restrictions, but generally, if you can travel safely, then deployment is a great time to do that. There's also things to do. What on your bucket list do you want to do that you haven't done yet? And this could be anything as big as I want to go back to school. I want to pursue that certification or that degree. It might be that you've wanted to check out a new job. Maybe you want to explore changing your resume, applying for a different type of career field, and branching out in a new direction. That could be a big thing for you to do during deployment. Or maybe it's just something to eat. Are there certain dishes that you don't have when your service member's around, either because they don't like them, or they're allergic, or they just didn't grow up with it? Maybe you have an interest in certain local restaurants that your service member just doesn't share. Deployment is a really good time to learn what foods you like. And it reminds me a little bit of that scene from The Runaway Bride when Julia Roberts' character, she has dated all these guys and gotten to where she's left them at the altar because she gets cold feet and backs out right on the wedding day. And there's a scene in the movie where she has told each guy that she likes eggs cooked exactly the way that her fiance liked them. One guy liked scrambled eggs, one guy liked fried eggs. So when they interviewed the fiancés, each one of them said, oh, her favorite eggs are cooked like this. And the reality was that she was just choosing whatever the guy liked. She never actually knew what her favorite type of egg was. So there's a scene where she actually goes and prepares like 20 different egg dishes on her own in her apartment, and she's just sitting there trying them to figure out for herself what is her own preference, what is her unique cooking style that is different from all of these different people that she's dated and been engaged to. So I definitely encourage you to find your own favorite dish. It doesn't have to be eggs, but whatever you want to eat and try during deployment, that can definitely go on your bucket list. Try something new. Deployment, again, is a great time to explore new interests and hobbies. There was one deployment where I learned how to play guitar because I was in college and I had one available and it seemed like a great thing that I could do. There was one deployment where I picked up rollerblading as a regular fitness routine, and I would just go rollerblading around my neighborhood for exercise. And then on my more recent deployment, I had the goal of writing a book. I wanted to do something new, and I spent a lot of that deployment in the evenings sitting down and writing. So that's part of how this deployment guide came about. And my next traditionally published book is coming out in September. It's called Open When: Letters of Encouragement to Military Spouses. And it took me a year to write these letters and identify moments of military life where spouses and loved ones needed the most encouragement. And for each of those moments, the big and small, I wrote a letter that you can open when you're going through that experience. So that was something new that I did during one of his deployments. And finally, there's a category for self-improvement. A lot of people pick a fitness or health or weight loss goal that they want to pursue. And I think that's great. I am never going to talk badly about any of those because they can all be healthy and motivational and good. But it can also be broader than that. You can have a goal to read more books during deployment, to, try a new routine, join a class, start going to church, connect with a local group of mom friends. There's tons of ways that you can focus on self-improvement. It's not just body, but it's mind and spirit, and also volunteer activities. So think for yourself what would be some of the most exciting and fulfilling things that you could do during this upcoming deployment or the deployment that you're currently in. If you have already been through a deployment and you have some experience with this, then please share with us some of the goals that you've set for yourself, some of the bucket list items that you either want to accomplish right now or that you have previously accomplished during a deployment, because we all need some inspiration and some ideas. So it's super important as you go through deployment to think about these things. These should all be positive, motivating ideas. They should not feel like a chore to you. It should not feel like one extra thing on your to-do list, but it should be something that's really exciting and that you can look forward to. And the reason that's important is because as we're moving through deployment, it's a little bit like the law of physics that says a body at rest will remain at rest unless it's acted upon by an outside force. I forget if that's Newton's second or third law, but something from high school reminded me that that's one of the laws of physics. And the fact is that during deployment, we can really get into a rut of just being stuck at home, especially these days where everything is virtual. You can't go out, you can't go to group events. And once you're at home and on your couch and scrolling through your phone, there's not a lot that's going to get you out of that mode unless you have some outside force acting on you, such as goals that you have set for yourself, or reminders that you have given yourself, or events and activities that you have scheduled. Unless you have those things reminding you, then it's really easy during deployment to just kind of stay in bed all day and get caught in a very dark spiral and get pulled towards depression. And we don't want that to happen. It's an easy pit to fall into and a very difficult one to dig your way out of. So a lot of spouses have learned that a way to keep themselves moving and perpetually pushing forward and achieving things during deployment is by setting little goals and activities like this bucket list. You could have weekly goals where, by the end of next weekend, I want to have finished this book that I'm reading, or I want to have made one new recipe. Those are things that you can look forward to and keep you motivated during the week. I also like to set big goals for every month of deployment, something that's going to be fun, that's going to keep me entertained and engaged throughout the deployment. And one example is when I was dating my service member, and I think it was his second deployment. I was working full time, living on my own in an apartment, and I really threw myself into my job and tried to keep very busy through my job. But still, deployment was kind of dragging and taking a lot of emotional toll and a lot of energy from me. And I found that during the month of December, I had decided to host a small Christmas party at my apartment for my friends and family. And that entire month, I got to enjoy being distracted by all the little tiny details of party planning. It was fun. It was something to get me going, to keep me looking up recipes, looking up decorations, going to the store to find unique ingredients and things like that. And then, of course, putting together the guest list and spreading the word and looking forward to spending time with people. It wasn't even a very big party. It wasn't very fancy or expensive or anything. But just having that event to look forward to at the end of the month, that kept me energized and excited and moving forward through a month that would usually be very difficult and challenging during deployment. So once I kind of learned that secret, I learned that I could plan little events for every month of deployment. It didn't have to be a party, it didn't have to be a holiday. But for myself, I could either plan a day to celebrate, some type of day at the end of the month when I could relax and enjoy some time to myself. It could be something that I did with my kids as my kids got a little bit older and I had to motivate them through deployment too. A lot of times we would have a day trip or go out for ice cream or go to the zoo or meet up with a friend. Do something different that requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of energy, but is something that's fun and motivating that you can look forward to. And that's what can really get you through those dark and challenging days of deployment, when you have something pushing you to connect with a friend, to get out of bed, to research that local park or museum. And the more that you do that, the more fun things that you can find to do with your service member. Because sometimes, let's be honest, when we're doing this research, all we can come up with is things that would be perfect for date night or would be perfect to do with the one that we're missing the most. And that can be really frustrating during deployment. So that's why this column on the side of the bucket list page, these are all ideas that you can jot down of things to do with your service member once they've returned. So as you're planning out these ideas for yourself in the blue columns, when you come across the most romantic local restaurant, or you come across a weekend activity that your service member would just love that you can't do by yourself right now, put those activities in this white column, because eventually they will come home. They will get their post-deployment leave. You can take some vacation. You'll be enjoying some time together. And you're going to have to think about, how do we want to spend our time? What do we want to do? It's so much more fun when you have a list of ideas and you can tell them, hey, while you were gone, I learned about this really great restaurant. We're going to have to check it out. I think you'll love it. Or I've always wanted to go, kayaking with you, and we haven't done that before. Let's make sure that we do that together when you come back. So sharing those ideas, those after homecoming ideas, with your service member while they're deployed can sometimes be great motivation and something for them to look forward to also. They don't get to make a bucket list usually when they're deployed. They don't get to focus on fun personal activities. So having something to look forward to after they come back can make all the difference in morale and keeping them motivated and reminding them that homecoming will come, they will return to you, and that you still have plenty of time to enjoy together. So again, I would love to hear from you some of your bucket list ideas, things that have motivated you during deployment, or some of the goals that you want to set for yourself as this deployment unfolds for you. Start brainstorming those and check out the comments for other people's ideas as well. Now, the flip side, literally the flip side, the next page here of this book, once we've talked about bucket list items, it's also really important to talk about setting SMART goals. Because I need to talk for a moment about a little problem with deployment that's called just staying busy. Now, there is a common type of advice that if you ask for someone to tell you, how should I handle my first deployment? I don't know what to expect. What can I do to get through all this time without my service member? Guaranteed, someone is going to respond, well, just stay busy and the time will fly and you'll be fine. Now, I understand the well-meaning intent behind those words. There is a theory that says the more active you are, the more interesting things that you have happening from a day-to-day basis, then the faster time does seem to move. And that is one way to make your deployment seem to move along, is by keeping yourself engaged at work, or taking care of your kids, or doing a new class, or pursuing a hobby, joining an exercise group. All of those things, if they motivate you to get out of bed and they keep your schedule flowing, they're going to help you move more quickly from one day to the next. I do understand that that's true. However, I will caution you that there is a problem with just staying busy, and that's explored much more in depth in our deployment masterclass. I'll explain more about that in a moment. But the essential problem is that if you put too many things on your plate, these things that are keeping you busy actually just turn into activities that stress you out. And no one needs extra stress and extra responsibilities and extra guilt during deployment. So there's a very fine balance between staying busy enough that you're not, bored on your couch or hiding in your bed all day, but you don't want to be so busy that you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, the weight of the world is on your shoulders, you never get a moment's break, you never get a good night's sleep. If you're in that mode, then that's not healthy, and you've gone a little bit too far on the just stay busy aspect. And I can tell you that each deployment is different. So what one person's just stay busy looks like might be completely overwhelming and exhausting to another person. And at the same time, it might seem boring and not interesting enough for a third person. So you need to find that balance for yourself and not judge your own busyness and your own activities based on what other people are doing for their deployment. For example, during my husband's earlier deployments, when we were not married, we did not have children, I was working full time. I could throw myself completely into my job. I worked very late. I had odd hours. I worked on weekends because I was a church youth minister. And I worked on that teenage schedule. I had to be available when they were out of school. So that was a lot of nights and weekends. And it certainly kept me distracted, but it also meant that I didn't really have a day off. I never had an evening or a weekend where I could spend time with my adult friends. I was always around these teenagers at the church that I was working with. So you have to find that balance where things are keeping you busy, but not dragging you down. And you have to have moments to refresh and collect yourself and energize yourself and keep yourself going for the rest of the deployment. In my later deployments, when I had babies at home and toddlers and I was not working, I was taking some online classes, but essentially I was home all day without a schedule. And I was completely overwhelmed with just taking care of children. I had 3 children, ages 3 and under. They could barely feed themselves. I had 2 in diapers at the same time. And just getting them in and out of the car to go to the grocery store was sometimes such an ordeal involving, multiple outfit changes and diaper changes and incredible messes and things to clean up, that was my whole day. My whole day was I fed people and I went to the grocery store. And to some, that might seem like a complete failure, that I wasn't keeping busy enough during deployment, that I didn't have big goals. I wasn't signed up to train for a marathon or do anything dramatic like that. But I was completely exhausted and maxed out where I was just taking care of little ones. So that's why I know my own limits. And I know that there have been some deployments where I could do running training. I've trained for a 10K during one of my deployments. But that was not the deployment where I was taking care of the babies. When I was doing that, then that's all I did. So you have to know your own stage of life, how overwhelmed and busy and stressed out you're going to be from your own activities. Don't compare your bucket list to someone else's. Okay, this should be something that is rewarding and fulfilling for you. And that's where these SMART goals come in. So when you are making your bucket list and thinking about things that are going to fulfill you and reward you during deployment, it's great to set these lofty goals. It's great to say, I want to use this deployment to really get in shape. I need to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to start a healthier diet. A lot of people choose goals like that. Or you might choose an education goal. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to complete 3 classes towards my degree while my service member is deployed. That's an incredible goal. That's wonderful. But the problem is that sometimes we make our goals a little bit too ambitious, a little bit too big. And when your goal is too big for reality, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. If you've just declared that you're going to get healthy and lose 50 pounds over the next 6 months, well, almost any doctor can tell you that that's not reasonable, that's not healthy, it's almost dangerous, and it's certainly not encouraged. So if you're in a place where you need to lose 50 pounds, then you have to break it down into smaller increments or a longer period of time so that it can happen in a realistic and healthy way. And that's true of any goal, not just weight loss, but anything that we want to do in our lives. If we set our stakes too high and make it a goal that is unrealistic or impossible to achieve during one deployment, then we're just going to fail and we're going to become more frustrated and disappointed as time goes on. And we find that we're all the way down here and we had set a goal all the way up here and we have no way of making up that difference. So I created this goals page based on the science that people who set SMART goals are more likely to achieve them. And when you achieve a goal, it gives you that feeling of satisfaction, of success, accomplishment, and that is a positive feeling that will keep you motivated and moving through your deployment. Now, SMART is an acronym because I know military spouses just love acronyms. I did not invent this. This acronym for SMART goals has been around for a while, but I'm just using it here as an example. So the S is for specific. When you set a goal, the more specific it is, the more likely it is to succeed. So, for example, to go back to the weight loss, if you just say, I want to lose weight during this deployment, or I want to get healthy during this deployment, that goal is not specific enough. How would you know when you have gotten healthy? What does it look like to be healthy for you? You need to be specific about what you're going to change. Does being healthy mean drinking more water? Does it mean working out 3 times a week? Does it mean cutting some of the sugars and carbs from your diet? Or does it mean losing 15 pounds of baby weight? Each of those goals is much more specific, and you'll notice that they would each require a little bit different strategy for attacking them. The person who's trying to drink more water and work out 3 times a week might be doing something different than the person who's trying to cut sugar and carbs from their diet. So making your goal specific, planning out exactly how you want it to happen, that's the way that you can achieve it. The M is for measurable. Scientists have learned that people are more likely to achieve goals when it's something tangible, results that they can measure. So again, you want it to be specific enough and have an actual quantity attached to it. That's why you'll see some people set annual goals saying, I want to read at least 1 new book a month. Or if you want to run more, challenge yourself, I'm going to run 5 miles a week. That is a specific number that you can measure. As the week goes on, you can tell whether you're on track to meet that goal or whether you're falling behind and you need to do a little bit of extra running today. And you can also use a measurable goal to grow throughout the deployment. Maybe you start out by just running 1 mile every few days. And as your body becomes used to that, you can make your goal, I want to run 3 miles or 5. And that's how people train for those longer races and events. You don't start out at the beginning of deployment saying, I'm going to run a marathon every week. That's not realistic or possible. So you want a measurable goal that you can see your success and track your success and feel satisfied in achieving that success. And that brings us to the A in SMART, which is achievable. A goal has to be realistically possible. And this is where I want you to think about the stage of life that you are in right now. What is realistically achievable for you during this deployment? If you're like me and you have the babies and the toddlers at home and your day-to-day life is completely overwhelmed just taking care of them, then make sure that you're not setting yourself a goal that's going to require too much time or more effort than you can actually make right now. Because again, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. It has to be something that is specific, measurable, and achievable. So if it's a weight loss goal, make sure that it's a healthy amount of weight to be lost over a healthy amount of time. I think most doctors say anything more than 1 to 2 pounds per week is dramatic and probably not maintainable and not realistic. So if your deployment is only 24 weeks long, you probably shouldn't be planning to lose more than 20 pounds, for example. If you are trying to go back to school, you can only take so many credits per week or per semester for your lifestyle right now. Don't overload your schedule and try to take 3 classes at once if it's really physically impossible and you don't have that many hours in the day. So that's what's important about the A for achievable. Now the R is rewarding. You want your deployment goals to be rewarding to you. They should not feel like a chore. They should not feel like another thing you have to do today. But it should be something that motivates you, that gets you out of bed, that makes you want to work harder and be better and do more than you did yesterday. A rewarding goal will make that happen. So don't choose your goals based on what you think your family members expect you to do or based on what your service member might want you to do. Choose your goals based on what is going to be rewarding and motivating to you. Is that fitness? Great, then do that. But if it's not fitness, is it reading? Is it connecting to friends? Is it art? Is it spending more time with your dog? Whatever is going to be rewarding to you and make you feel accomplished and good about yourself during deployment, that's the type of rewarding goal you want to focus on. And finally, timely. This is so important. I think for deployment especially, people tend to take the assumption that I need to accomplish this goal by homecoming, which is great. It makes sense. But you actually have to count how many months there are going to be approximately. I know we never quite know exactly, but you need approximately how many months are there between now and homecoming? Because if you're trying to achieve this giant goal and you only have 6 months to do it, you need to break it down into smaller milestones and figure out by month 1, what am I trying to accomplish? By month 2, by month 3. And that way, again, you'll be able to measure it and you'll know when you're on track. But the timely part also means that we aren't waiting until the very last month of deployment to suddenly freak out and realize that we didn't do all these things we had planned to do. We didn't redecorate the house and repaint the master bedroom and lose those 20 pounds and train the dog and, potty train the kids and do all these things. When we suddenly try to cram those goals into the last month, they don't become rewarding and they usually aren't achievable. If we had spaced them out, saying, okay, for the next month, I'm going to focus on this goal. Or if you were trying to read, 100 books in a year, you can't wait until December to start reading. You'd have to pace yourself saying, I'm going to do, what would that be? Well, it'd be smaller than 10 books a month. So if you do, 8 books a month, then that would get you close to your goal of 100 books in a year. And if you break that into even smaller timely increments, if you're trying to read 8 books a month and there's 4 weeks in a month, that means you'd only have to read 2 books per week. Well, for some people, that's completely realistic and possible. And for some people, that is not. So make sure that as you break your goal into these timely milestones, that you check it back against these other things. Is it achievable? Is it measurable? And is it going to be rewarding? So I hope that as you fill out those bucket list items from this page, that you'll also fill out some of your specific, measurable, achievable, rewarding, timely, SMART goals from this page. And that will get you motivated about all the positive and fulfilling and fun things that you can accomplish during this deployment. So I hope that that has inspired you to start thinking about some ways that you can make the most of your time during deployment. Again, I would love to hear your ideas on what you want to accomplish, so feel free to leave them in the comments anytime. And I hope that you will also be inspired by some of the other ideas in the comments. I'm going to drop a link to some of my deployment goals that I have set at different deployments. I didn't do them all at once, but I compiled a list of some of the various goals I've set for myself. And I want to refer you again to a session from the Deployment Masterclass where we talk about this in a lot more depth. There is a whole video training that's called Keeping Busy During Deployment. And I had an incredible interview with MilSpouse Judy Davis, who you may also know as a speaker for MilSpouse Fest, and you may know her as the author of a book called Right Side Up. She's a motivational speaker and a military spouse, and she had such valuable insight about how we can avoid that trap of just stay busy during deployment and how we can find that balance between finding enough to do that keeps us encouraged and motivated, but not so much that we're becoming overwhelmed and stressed. So if you're struggling with that balance and trying to figure out what's right for you at this time in your life, then you definitely want to watch that video training with Judy Davis. It's in the Deployment Masterclass. The Deployment Masterclass is a subscription program that once you've signed up, you can watch those training videos at any time throughout your deployment. I did video interviews with a dozen different military spouses on the most challenging and difficult deployment topics that I see military spouses struggling with every day. So I sought out experts who had been through multiple deployments, and I have their advice and their tips and their ideas all compiled into the Deployment Masterclass. So the interview with Judy Davis is excellent, and it covers a lot more than we could actually say in this video today. So I hope you'll go check that out. Again, the link is in the comments, but it is seasoned spouse /deployment. And that will take you to the Deployment Masterclass and all the information that you need. So it has been definitely an honor meeting with you today for this session 6 of our book club. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you have some inspiration and encouragement for your deployment. And I would love to hear from you once you have filled out your bucket list and set some of those goals. We look forward to sharing them more with the group and continuing your deployment preparation journey. Thanks so much for being here with us today. I'm Lizanne, the seasoned spouse, and I will see you next time.